awesome. So good to be here doing this. This is crazy. This is out of my comfort zone. Doing everything on this stage doesn't normally include this. So I have a question for you guys today. Have you ever justified your sin? And you might be thinking, like, what do you mean? Okay, so an example, maybe on the way in today, there's some signs on the side of the road, and for some reason, every time you look at them, your eyes put ish at the end of them. So you got like 35-ish. It's like okay, it's not good to do this, but it's not really bad. I would say that's justifying your sin. I had something like that come up about 4 years ago where I justified my sin, and through that, I found myself betraying somebody close to me by doing something that I thought was right. I didn't mean to betray him, but pretty fast after I started into this situation that I was caught in, caring for other people and looking out for them, the concern that I had for the situation turned quickly into gossip and backstabbing. And so today, that's why I'm so excited to be able to talk with you guys about this. It's something that I've gone through. I think it's something that we all deal with, is gossip and talking about people behind their backs. And so I do want to also add, before I get into this is awesome that I get to share this with you, because this is a story of grace and forgiveness, and not one of shame and guilt. And that's such a blessing to me to be able to look back on everything that happened and realize that God's put me in a place where I can look back on this story and the current situation in a good way. So me and my friend, we hung out all the time. He was a really, really, really good guy to me. He was always bringing me along, right alongside of him. We had spiritual growth talks together. A lot of the things that I do on stage have a lot to do with him. He actually mentored me when it comes to music. So we were really close all the time. And a situation came up where I felt like he was mistreating other friends of ours. It was really difficult to hear those things, to hear the different things that were coming back around to me. I didn't know how to handle that. And through my frustration, I kind of built a wall against him that separated us. And I would love to be able to say that I followed along with what Scripture says, because it actually talks about this in Scripture. It says in Matthew 18:15, if another believer sins against you, go to that person, talk about the conflict, and if they listen and they confess it to you, then you've won them over. And that would be like so great. It's like I go to him, we talk it over. He's like, no, I get where you're coming from, man. I see what you're saying. Let's work this out. Let's work through it. Throw a bow on it. It's good. I'm like, drop the mic, walk off the stage. It's perfect. But that's not what happened. That's not the way my actions worked out in this situation. No, instead, my actions looked a little bit more like the proverb that I picked out for today. And that's Proverbs 16:28. It says, a perverse person stirs up conflict, but a gossip separates close friends. A gossip separates close friends. That's where I found myself in the situation, which was really tough. I don't think I've ever dealt with something like this before this. And that happened from talking to other friends about the situation and instead of going to my friend honestly with what I was hearing. That's where caring about people and listening for their concerns, because that's a good thing. That's a good thing to do, is to care about people and what they're going through. But where I got off track a little bit was, instead of going to him and talking about it with him when I was hearing these things, I kept it to myself, and I let that anger build up in me and other people, and I kept those conversations going. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. And the point here that I really want to make that is really huge in our lives is even good intentions that we have can be handled with the wrong actions. Even good intentions can be handled with the wrong actions. That's like, just get that in your brain for a second and think about that. So many times we want to do what's right, but the way that we go about it and doing that turns out in a negative way. I think that we've all been there. I think we've all gossiped about somebody, or been gossiped about, and that hurts. That cuts deep. And so, since we've all gone through this, I just want to take a minute, go around the room, and share about some time that you gossiped about the person sitting next to you. I'm just kidding. That would be awful. That would be oh my gosh, that'd be the worst, probably most awkward church service you've ever been to. And for me too, I probably would just walk off the stage at that point. But for real, talking about people behind their backs, it's something that really can cut deep and fast. It can really get to you. And the thing about that, why it gets to you, is because word always gets back around. And man, that's so true, isn't it? Every time that something is said, whether it's negative or positive or whatever it is, if you're saying something about someone else, they always hear about it. It just happens naturally. And so, when this happened to me, word got back around to my friend. And he lost trust in me because of it. He heard the things I was saying, not just the things that other people were saying, the frustrations other people had, but the things I was saying. And when I heard about that, and I knew that he knew what I had done, I noticed that I'd really messed up the situation. I'd really taken the wrong path. And so I wanted to seek out counsel. What I found from the person that I talked to about this, how can I fix my end? Where did I go wrong? How can I fix this? They told me that I had to forgive even without an apology on the table. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I remember on my dining room floor, kind of just on my knees, crying out to God, literally crying, tears down my face. I was a mess, drooling all over the place probably. And God met me right where I was. He showed me that the forgiveness that he showed me, I was able to show to my friend. Because he gives that to us. And words like gossip, words like backstabbing and distrust, God erases those. We get to start seeing words like grace, forgiveness, and acceptance. He brings those into our situation. He met me right where I was on the floor, crying out to him. And he picked me up and he helped me take a 180. It's kind of just like the series that we just talked about finding freedom. God comes right alongside of us and walks through the mess that we've already made. And he kind of cleans it up for us. And that's what I went through with this situation. And like I said, he allowed me to forgive my friend. Which brings me to my next point. This is huge. This is something we can live in every single day with everything. And this comes into action with gossip, with everything, with any kind of sin that we're going through. And it's that we're able to show forgiveness because of the forgiveness he's already shown to us. When Jesus died on the cross, he offered that. Any sin that had happened, any sin that was ever going to happen in our life, he forgave it right there. Blank slate. That's a sketch and shake it. It's gone. The action of forgiving is mentioned 116 times in the Bible. That means it's really important to God, and that should be important to us, into our lives. We should look for ways to implement that. And I think it's mentioned so many times because of how much we deal with stuff like this. Hurtful words come into our life all the time. Parents, with your kids, there can be separation there with spouses, with friends, even siblings, separated for years on end because of things that were said in the past. And we're thinking to ourselves, is this even able to be fixed at this point? And I stand here today to tell you, yes, it can. This happened with me. See, what was going on went unresolved for almost 3 years. This was a big portion of my life. You're like, wow, 3 years, that's a long time for a 15-year-old. I'm 22, I'm sorry. I had to throw that in there. 3 years that this went on. And it was hurtful, it was awkward between us, but God brought healing into that situation. Just like I said before, the forgiveness that he shows to us, we can show to others. And he brought that into my friend's relationship with us. Now we're tighter than ever. The friendship that we had before any of this happened doesn't even compare to the friendship that we have now. We hang out all the time. We text each other all the time. He knows I'm talking about this weekend. He was one of my main encouragements for writing this talk. And that's the kind of healing that God can bring into a situation when we sit down, we talk about what's going on, and we're honest with each other instead of going behind our backs. And I know that we're not going to be perfect. This is something I think everybody deals with. It's that meeting after meeting situation. You know, you get done talking here about the person that you need to be talking with, and then you end that, you walk out here, and then you're like, hey, let me tell you about this thing that just happened. It's that meeting after the meeting. You got to watch out for those and catch yourself in those moments. Because I still struggle with that. I still got to catch my tongue sometimes. And I think that's something we'll all go through. But God gives us the grace and the forgiveness that we can live in a way that reflects who he is to us. Thanks for listening, guys.